For our Canadian lifters, pure passion, real results, what you put in your body should matter. Pure Vita Labs PVL supplements are clean, tested, and approved, powering athletes for over 25 years. They also power the KOTL podcast. You could trust PVL. Use code KOTL15 for partnership pricing at PVL.com.
Six Pack Lapadat. This is the 2023 IPF World's men's preview show. And this world's is big, it's stacked, and so is our preview show. We got legends in the lineup. Matt Gary joins us. He needs no introduction. If he does, you're probably coming to the wrong place. Eric Helms returns. Joe Whiteley returns. Rory, the linchpin Lynch returns. It's a returning cast. I could trust no one else any better than you guys in terms of making the pick. We're going to start like we usually do at the smallest weight class, and that is the 59 kilo class. We're going to have Matt and Eric give some cases on what to look out for, and then at the end we'll ask everybody their picks minus myself and Joe Whiteley. But a quick overhead view: if we look at the 59s, the reigning world champion from France, Antoine Garcia, returns, but he's met with some stiff opposition. Chinese Taipei has a contender in Zhang. Franklin Leon, the veteran, returns from Ecuador. And of course, America's Huáscar Carpio returns, having hit a huge Carpino at the American Nationals. A lot of people thought he might not make it due to the very large Carpino. He did, and now has his eyes set on the World Championships and possibly it's not called Carpino, but the qualifying total for Sheffield should he win. He needs 95% of the world record. I believe that's 636. So not only does he want to win, but that is a big goal he mentioned on the podcast. Who wants to go first and dive into the 59s?
I guess I'll take it away.
Matt?
Sure,
Yeah,
I'll take it away. I'll take it away. I mean, Ryan, that was a really good introduction. I think just looking at it, we had last year's champ, Antoine Garcia, who's added 20 kilos to his total since Worlds in South Africa. We also have Wei Zhang Zheng, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. However, his data was unverifiable. So I'm always a little bit suspect when there's a nomination of a lifter and we're unable to verify the data. I know we were talking about that in the group chat with some of the nominations and so forth. And some of these coaches and teams and federations play kind of, hijinks or what have you in terms of, submitting numbers that aren't necessarily verifiable, or they might be the sum of someone's PV. So I'm going to kind of put him on the shelf here for a second. But again, Antoine winning last year, of course, returning veteran Leon Franklin. I think the big story here is American Huáscar Carpio, who showed up and showed out at Powerlifting American Nationals. We all saw the total that he put together, coached by Steve Denovi. I spoke to him yesterday. He is supremely confident. He's had a fantastic prep. He respects the travel. This is the first time that he's going to be competing overseas at a competition of this magnitude, but he's arriving 5 days early, and he's been very clear about his objectives the entire time. He's aiming for that 636 total, like you said, which is actually going to round up to 637.5. I don't believe that any of the world records are in play, to be honest. So he's just going to have to put together his best total here and try, because he wants to hit that total to go to Sheffield. So clearly, as a first-time competitor to Worlds, I think his primary objective should be securing the W. And I think any wise lifter, wise coach would do that. He had a lifetime PB this prep in the deadlift of 267.5. It was challenging. I don't know if that's a harbinger of things to come. During his last prep leading up to Powerlifting American Nationals, he hit a 265 deadlift, but wasn't able to necessarily reproduce that on the platform. So it remains to be seen. But I think he's the front runner. I think Huáscar has got the goods. I do think that he will win. And so I mean that's who I would put as my front runner. I would probably lean toward Leon in second, just as his veteran, the seasoned veteran of the group, if you will. And then I would probably pick Antoine as third, again because the Taipei lifter is unverifiable.
What are your thoughts, Eric?
I see it for the most part pretty similarly, but I think this is going to be a bit of a. I think maybe for one of the first times in this class, as not being typically a super well populated class, there's going to be a lot of questions, which I think is cool. Um, like Matt said, I agree with everything he said. Wasker is probably the front runner when it comes to just what kind of total do we think can be put up. And to his credit, he's gone 8 for 9 in his last couple comps, but this is the first time he's competed internationally. So I think probably the smart money is on Wasker, but I can totally understand anybody who might go with someone with more international experience, like an Antoine Garcia. Same thing, yeah. Zheng Wei Zhang, I just couldn't get any good information on them. And then Leon Franklin or Eduardo Leon. I'm not sure. His Instagram's a little different than his actual his title there. I just want to make sure I say them both so I get one of them. I'm at least 50% right. Been in the game a long time as well, and he's approaching 40, and he's been lifting since he was in his 20s. So lots of international experience. Competing both on the equipped side as well, even in the World Games. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting. I think I can't give a fully truly dissenting opinion, but it is really going to depend on can Wasker show up and perform at the same standard that he has nationally, internationally. So I think there's a strong possibility that is the case, but I would not count out the possibility of someone else with more experience edging him out even, which it might be pretty interesting to see.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, fun fact about Leon is his last Raw competition was in 2021. I believe it was the South American Championships. I mean, he's, as you said, Eric, he's a well-known equip lifter and kind of, I think, has done more damage on the equip side than he has the Raw side, but that's taking nothing away from him. So clearly he's the seasoned veteran. I was only going to say about Waskar, I do have him as the front runner. He added 13.5 kilos to his total from October of 2022 to February of 2023 when we had PA Nationals. So he put a big chunk on his total, especially for a smaller, lighter lifter, but he still needs another 24 kilos above and beyond what his performance was at PA Nats. And I think, that is a huge ask to travel overseas, first World Championships, as you said, Eric, strictest judging in the world. His lifts are exceptional, and I know that he will uphold the standard of competition, but it's a humongous ask for him to hit 24 kilos additional to what he did in Texas.
Yeah, and to your point, Matt, I think there's a unique storyline here, and it may be that it's all right. Who is going to be on the podium as one interesting thing, and then the next thing is it's going to be Wasker versus the Sheffield nomination kind of thing, which I think is kind of cool. And I think that's probably the biggest open question. He is the youngest member of the potential podium placers. So if there's anybody who's going to have a shot at it, it's him. Ryan did a great podcast with him one-on-one, and I'd encourage people to listen to it. He's got a great personality. You want him to actually do it when you just hear his perspective and how humble he is, and he's balancing it with his family as a young man. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to bet the odds. He's going to get the Sheffield qualification. He's got it in him. He's got the heart. Am I playing the odds? Am I playing the probability? If I go to Vegas, is this the right mindset? No. But sometimes you just have to live on a prayer, as a great philosopher once said.
It's putting it this way as well. Not only is he doing it for himself, his family, but he said he wants to help popularize the 59s and do for the 59s what Penna did for the 66s, which we'll get to in a second. And if he said one of the ways that he could do that, first off, bring the flair, which he does, to your point, Eric, charismatic guy, very good, well-spoken on the podcast. But if he can get to Sheffield and be a 59-kilo lifter on the Sheffield and put on a show like Gavin Aiden and all the other guys did, Delaney at Sheffield, that's when he can popularize 59s and help grow that class. And I don't know if he could do it this year. I think he will eventually, but if he can, and that's why everybody's rooting for him. I also want to give a quick shout out before we look at the 66s. I just saw Dion Louis from New Zealand. You guys will like this, Rory and Eric. hold 275 kilos in training for a 59 kilo, 129 pound man. 606 pounds, 275 kilo deadlift is ridiculous. It's insanity. And he's coming to Worlds. I don't know what he's going to pull at Worlds, but my God, is he peaking? Don't sleep on any of these guys. Ivan from Spain, moving up from the juniors, European champ. I mean, we got some killers in here. So 59 kilo class is starting to get more and more stacked and more competitive and more interesting. We'll move it. Oh, sorry, Rory, let's get your picks.
I don't think I can disagree with what either Matt or Eric said. I might say that I don't think Waskar is going to get the Sheffield qualifier this time round. Potentially, he's going to get it another time in the future. And I just had a quick glance at the world records, and I think the only one that might be under threat here might be the deadlift record with Waskar, potentially Wei Xiangzheng, though of course we can't verify that total, and Louis all coming in close around that sort of 260, 270 mark. I think that deadlift record we might see change hands once or twice over the course of the meet.
Gotcha. All right. We ready for the 66s?
Yeah, I think the 66s is going to be a really close one. We've got some really interesting nominations there with Brian Lee, Kyoto Yoshiyama, and Kasim-san Senyumong. They are all nominated at or above the world record total. So we're not concerned about it being 95% for Sheffield qualifiers. They are already there. Kasim-san Senyumong has the world record total, 710.5. But we have Kyoto Yoshiyama at 712.5 from Japanese nationals, and Brian Lee did 713.5 at PA Nats. So that's without even mentioning Panna. So that's the caliber we've got in the 66 kilo class. Of course, he's nominated at 687. He's done more than 700 in the past, but we don't know quite where he is. He had all that difficulty with Euros. Can he get his head back together? He's talking a great fight. He looks in great shape. So how do you see that going, Matt?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Joe. I mean, this is going to be just a phenomenal battle for the podium and for the top spot. I guess let's talk about Penna for a second, just listening to his podcast. I mean, this sounds like a man on a mission coming in, and we'll accept nothing less than the absolute best. His best total at 66 is 700. I believe when he's gone over the 700 mark, I believe that's either been, in the gym on a training day and or at a heavier body weight. So his best total at 66, if I'm not mistaken, is 700. He recently totaled 687.5 at that France selection meet, if you will. He does cut a significant amount of weight. And just has a history of a lot of his biggest lifts, kind of coming in the gym. But he is the king of grind. He's the king of fight. And so, I mean, I definitely think that he will be in the mix. Looking at Mr. Kasim-san, if I pronounced that correctly, as you said, he is the current world record holder. However, his last comp was the Asian Classics, and that was under the old bench press rule. And I don't believe that I found anything on him on social media in terms of an Instagram. So I've not seen the gentleman bench. So I don't know if I'm not saying that his bench isn't up to standard, but that's a 155 bench under the old bench rule. So I have no idea if that would create some play within his total. Of course, looking at Ushiyama, he competed at the Sheffield, and I think it's well documented that he blew it out of the water literally like 6 or 7 days before coming to the Sheffield. And I think, kind of extended himself and then had the long trip to the Sheffield and wasn't able to reproduce that total, only going 5 for 9. So I know that he's coming back with a vengeance. But I really think, the story revolves here around the biggest deadlifter in the group, and that's the American, the youngster, Brian Lee. Has a PB total of 713.5 coming off of his Powerlifting America Nationals performance. His 242.5 squat that he hit at PA Nationals was quite easy. So he's got some left in the tank. He passed his third bench press. I think there was just kind of some attempt selection issue there, and he kind of, emptied the gas tank on his second. So I think with a little bit more pragmatic attempt selection, he may have more. And then, of course, he's got that world record deadlift in his sights because the world record deadlift is currently set at 300. So presumably he might be breaking that once, possibly twice. So we got, Ushiyama and Lee there going back and forth for the world record. But anyway, I guess I'll start there and maybe let Eric kind of take it.
Yeah, not a ton to add to what you said, except for some interesting information that may help us understand why did Kyoto, kind of shoot a shot at Japanese nationals before the Sheffield. And that is actually something you can understand if you just look a little bit lower on the nomination list. You see another 66 kilo lifter from Japan. I'm potentially mispronouncing this, and apologies, but that is Yusuke Satake. I think that's potentially close enough for me not to be sounding too dumb. And if you look at his open powerlifting, you'll see that he was pulling a big third attempt on his last deadlift to push him up to a 700 total. So now it starts to make sense. Like, why did Kyoto go so hard at nationals? And I think that's interesting. So it may be that what we're looking at is he got pushed harder than we thought at Japanese nationals. And then, hey, you go to Sheffield, you show out, you pull out all the stops. What are we there for? So there may be a perception right now that Kyoto is not making the best game day decisions in terms of attempt selection, which I think is a valid critique, but we don't know if it's actually a statement about him as an athlete or a statement of the conditions he's been under as an athlete. So I actually am curious to see if he shows up at Worlds and plays it like you do at a World Championship, and all of a sudden we've got a real battle on our hands. And just seeing how resilient he was going from nationals to Sheffield, I'm going to pick him as a dark horse winner here and come out on top. Again, I'm being crazy today. I'm going to Vegas, and I'm not betting on the winners, but I'm trying to cash in. And maybe this is just an intervention that I need to have around gambling. But I think that's the only difference I would say is I'm gonna say, hey, we should be watching out for Kyoto, because I think he's got something in store for us. If he can put together even a pretty good day, I think he'll have a very, very big number. Beyond that, man, I wish I know it was a long one, but you got to listen to the podcast episode with Panna, because
Thank you, sir.
You guys did great. By the end of it, I'm like, Panna's unbeatable. He has convinced me that he is going to win everything, always, forever. I think Panna is going to have a very good meet. And I think he is going to push himself in a position where he is going to have a shot on gold. So I would be surprised if he isn't on the podium, but I would also be surprised if he tops the podium, even though he has all the heart in the world, because he is facing two very stiff competitors who have shown data that they can put up very, very big numbers. So I think, man, I'll tell you what, who do I want to win? Panna. How can I not? But who do I think is going to win? I think he has a very tough fight in his hands, and I'm gonna choose the dark horse and go with Kyoto.
I just want to say real quick, Kyoto is not a crazy bet. You're saying like I'm betting crazy. I honestly don't think it's a crazy bet. He's 1 kilo behind Brian Lee, and and thank you for big up in the Panna podcast. He's looking phenomenal as well in training. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Did you actually give your picks, Matt?
I'll go ahead. I didn't, but I will. Okay. I'll take. Let's put Panna in third. I've got Kyoto in second, and I've got Brian Lee winning. I just think that with three really good deadlifters, Panna's going to have to play his cards first, and so that's just so tough, man, when you're not being able to pull last or toward the bottom of the flight. And so that's my only concern there.
Okay. What do you think, Rory?
The only, I guess, point of dissent that I want to throw in there is that Sen Yumong from Thailand is the only one of these lifters who's done his best total not domestically. So it's not that these men haven't traveled before, like most of them have traveled before, but yeah. But he's the first person, as we're going down the list, who his best total didn't come in a meet that was within his home country. And so that gives me a lot of confidence that not only is that total legit, but he may actually be able to repeat it. Whereas when people do a total, either in their hometown or reasonably close to where they live, they can't always repeat that when they then fly, 8, 12, 24 hours around the world, right? So I think Kyoto is probably still a good pick. But I I wouldn't look past Senumong just because he is a good deadlifter. Like he's hit 300, and he hit it at another international meet, right? He hit that at it was the Asian Championships, I think.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
That's a good point.
It's tight. It's going to be. I don't know that we've ever seen a 66 battle like this before.
Yeah.
No, this is the best one in history. We have three people 7'10" and up, and then the fourth man is Panagiotis, who's former world champion, former European champion, and a superstar in powerlifting. It's the most stacked 66 kilo class we've ever seen. I can't believe we're talking about gentlemen 7'10" and up in the 66s, and there are three of them can deadlift 300 kilos and up. It's insanity. It's going whoever comes in fourth could win at any given year. It is absolutely crazy. I don't know who's going to win this one. Literally, it just depends. It's going to be those extra little factors: the travel, time zone change, food, whatever. The little do you have nagging injuries? It's going to be something like that. We all good to everyone give their picks?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move it along to the 74s, and it is Return of the King, Taylor Atwood. But there is some caveats now. We've been talking on a podcast recently. Taylor was obviously injured and then got food poisoning right before Sheffield. Coming into this, the turnaround isn't gracious in terms of time period for Taylor. There's no way he's 100%, but recent footage he's been dropping would suggest he's also not at Sheffield levels. He's probably higher. That, my friends, is a good thing, because Tim Monagatti from New Zealand has dropped down from the 83s and posting up squats 292.5 kilos, deadlifts 320, and his bench is holding firm. And when asked his body weight, he said 75 kilos walking around. That is big, big, big trouble for Mr. Atwood. He has the fight of his life. Speaking of the fight of his life, oh, by the way, Kjell Buckland from Norway returns. And if anyone forgot about him, he's won world championships in the classic, world championships in the equipped, and he's the last man to defeat Taylor Atwood at an IPF world championships. He beat him in 2017. Taylor won 2018 when Buckland wasn't there, and they rallied in 2019, and Taylor finally got the win back. Well, Shale's back. Let's see if Buckland's injuries have subsided. He has some bad hips. That's why he went into equipped. He says he feels good enough, but the rest of the field, maybe Taylor is just hurt enough, and the rivalry is back on. Chun Chia Fan from Chinese Taipei, a Joey Flex disciple, coming in as the third nomination in the late 700s, young, and expect that 760 to go up. And Carl Johansson, also Joey Flex athlete from Sweden, he goes by Kalle Johansson, hit a 754.5, expect that to go up. His progress has been very quick under Joey Flex. All of these people are direct competitors for the throne, if not the podium. In Australia, Stephen Day Rambo from France, Paul Ramboville, also a contender, a podium favorite, already podium in the past, and Joshua Wright from Germany. As I look at those who are going to be discussing this 170, we have Eric and Matt. This time, let's throw it to Eric first. Eric, This is stacked. We said the 66 is probably the most stacked 66 class we've ever seen. I dare say this is the most stacked 74s.
Yeah, this is interesting because of the position Taylor's in. And for anyone who listened to me recently talking about eras, you know that I am not of the opinion that we can say Taylor is washed, and that I had a strong opinion about someone else's opinion that Taylor was washed. And I also acknowledge that everyone has opinions, and they're like, I'll say buttholes for this one. I'm going to rein myself in. Just in general, I need to rein myself in and say, but yes, everyone has those. Sometimes they stink, and that can include me. But I am going to hold fast. I really think this is going to be Taylor, and I don't think it's going to be that close, even though it could be. He recently posted a deadlift up. He's coming off of an injury. He's coming off of what I would say at Sheffield is an even more compounded poor performance for him because of the fact that he was ill on the night prior. And the fact that he put together what he did on that day, and he did take some shots on numbers that were probably a little more risky than you would take at Worlds. I think we're going to see a higher total than he put up at the Sheffield at Worlds, and I don't think anyone can touch that. Couple of interesting facts that I don't want to steal anyone's thunder related to some of the nominations, so I'm going to leave that there. But I think it's going to be great to see Kel Beckland. How do you pronounce Kel's first name? Is it Kel? Shell.
Chell.
Okay.
Chell.
Sorry, and I apologize, Shell, because we've met a number of times, and I've probably said it wrong to your face. So
I think Norwegians are used to that.
Yeah, they probably are. They're lovely people. But yeah, it's great to see a battle between Shell and Taylor again. It hasn't happened in a long time. I think it was Belarus, and that was that time Shell came out on top. That was my first Worlds. It was a really cool experience, and I think even if Shell has his best day, it would take Taylor having a bad day for him to come out on top there. As far as the other gentlemen in this class, there's two very, very young individuals, like you said, who are working with Joey Flex, who are coming up quick. I mean, if you look at some of the progressions of these folks' totals, it's going to be interesting to see what they can do on game day. Like, for example, Carl Johansson, if you just go back to 2020, his numbers start in the 600s, and then, okay, we're into 2022. We have like 717. And then up as high as 730, and then recently, boom, 754.5 in Sweden. So we might see something higher than the nomination there, which could really shake things up on the platform. And I think the same thing could also be said of Fan Chunxia. And I haven't been able to find good information on him to really kind of look at the historical perspective, but it's going to be tight. And as far as Tim Monagatti, I think it would be interesting to see if he can pull an Evie, which I think she's earned that title of, coming down and surprising people. But I will say that the lift that is typically the most affected by cuts is the bench press. And that was where he was already weak relative to the division. Obviously, he's benching more than me, and he's like, two weight classes above me. He's not a weak bencher. He's just weak compared to world champions, right? So I mean, no disrespect there. Another thing, and I have to mention this, is that Tim Monagatti is not a very consistent lifter statistically at the world level. He has had 9 for 9 for performances, but they're always happening in his backyard in New Zealand. He's been at 2 junior worlds, I believe, and 1 worlds, and he's gone 5 or 6 for 9 each time. So he is changing things up. He's coming in as a 74, but he's going to need to change up what he does on the platform if he wants to have a hope of moving above where he's nominated and actually shifting into a potential threat on the podium. So my personal picks, it's going to be Taylor number 1. And then I don't know who's going to be next, but I'm going to pick one of the very 2 young people as actually coming out above Shell, and then Shell in third, and then we'll see where the rest fall.
Okay, so Matt, before you give your actual picks,
Yep.
could you build me a case why someone is going to beat Taylor and take that championship? And who do you think is the biggest threat to do so? And give me that perspective, and then we can get to your actual picks.
Wow. Yeah, that's really difficult to do. I'm not going to lie. In terms of sheer experience, in terms of building a case for another lifter, I'd probably have to build it for Kjell Backlund, simply because he's the most seasoned lifter out of arguably everybody. This guy's been doing it for a really long time. You pull up his open powerlifting, and this guy's got a laundry list of competitions, largely equipped, to be fair. His best raw total is really coming at this body weight is coming from his total in Belarus. So that's a long time ago. That's 2017, where he totaled 757. But he is armed with the world record deadlift. And because you have that world record deadlift capability, I would say that he would be the biggest threat to overtake Taylor if he could put together, hit his best day. I mean, he would have to go 9 for 9. But I would look at him as the biggest threat just because of his, like I said, seasoned veteranship, if you will. To Eric's point, Madigatti has been inconsistent on the platform. We all know that he put up that tremendous gym total, at only a kilo over. But that was back in April. He has improved his depth. All of his squat videos have actually looked fantastic. I think his depth lifting at 74 is better than some of the squat videos that we saw when he was at 83. And he's potentially, in world record territory as well with the deadlift. But anyway, to answer your question, Ryan, if I was going to say if somebody could possibly do it, I would say it would be Chell. But that's not how my picks are going to go.
Matt.
And before we get to your picks, sorry, Eric, you wanted to throw something in there?
Just I want Matt to talk about what he put in the chat that some people might not realize when looking at the nominations.
Yeah, so his nominated total is deceiving because that total was performed when he was weighing 79.7. So he was an 83 kilo, and so that's what we were talking about kind of in the group chat beforehand. Is some of these totals are not checked for accuracy. Some countries and federations submit totals of lifters that they've achieved at heavier body weights. And so, Chell's best, or total, I should say, that was nominated total was performed when he was 79.7. So don't let the smooth taste fool you, as they say. But like I said, his best total at 74 was done in Belarus. And I know that there's going to be some strong charging lifters. Ryan, if I may just mention a couple others for just a second.
Yeah,
I agree.
absolutely.
I agree with what you said, Eric, in terms of Carl Johansson. Chunchi, a fan, it's unverifiable data, so I really don't have a lot on him. I do want to mention Stephen Day of Australia. Really bright guy. He works hand in hand with Kelly Mann, that's Meg Scanlon's coach, down at Perform Motion. He's coached by Sean Noriega. He has world record squat potential, and I do suspect that either Stephen Day or potentially Tim Madigatti, based on what he's shown in training, are going to really take a crack at Taylor's world record squat. Stephen his last performance was literally dreadful, and he has admitted that. He went 3 for 9 at Australian Nationals, and I know that he's been talking about rectifying that performance. I believe that he'll come in strong and charge hard into the subtotal. But unfortunately, a lot of these lifters are going to be pulling after him. So I don't expect Stephen to have enough to make the podium. Paul from France, Rambo, as I think we refer to him.
That's right.
The last meet that he did, he weighed 77.5. So again, he's going to have to make a cut and get his weight in order. But he's in world record deadlift territory as well. So he could be in the mix there. You've got probably 3, maybe 4 lifters that have a possibility of taking that world record deadlift, with Taylor, with Backlund, with Paul, and potentially even Tim, all taking a crack at that world record deadlift. But if I'm going to make my picks, it's long live the king. You've got to knock out the champ. I have every confidence in Taylor Atwood. I think really this is a race to about 800 kilos. I think that'll do it. And to Eric's point, I don't think that there's anybody else who's capable currently of hitting that type of total. I mean, Taylor, I know that he's still dealing with the knee tendonitis. He hasn't had time off from the Sheffield, no true deload. I talked to Jason Tremblay. They've been able to dance around this issue with using tempo, but he has done significantly more training volume this prep leading into Worlds than he was able to do at Sheffield. So I have confidence that this is a man on a mission. He's tired of hearing the birds chirping. To your point, Eric, we are still in the Taylor Atwood era. I believe hand in hand with you very strongly about that. No disrespect to Austin Perkins and what he recently did, but we are still in the Taylor Atwood, and he is still the king, and I fully expect him to win.
I'll also say Alexander Eriksson from Sweden is in the mix. Joe Jordan from U.S. Virgin Islands, moving up from the 66s. We got some big names. We got some names that people are going to be familiar with. A very stacked 74 kilo class. I think we have 4 competitors here with 730, 2 of them with 727.5. And then just above that, 2 of them with 732.5. I mean, it is close right down the rankings. Go ahead there, Joe. What are we looking at with the 83s?
Well, we have Delaney Wallace. He won last year and he was at Sheffield. He missed taking the total world record by about this much. He was so close, so close. And I think he's got it coming back in. If he can just string it all together, I think he'll hit that total. But Durin's Kengamu put up 820.5 at British Nationals, and he was cruising. They were easy lifts. He's got a lot more to come there. So those two, I think, are going to be quite closely matched. But we've got Edoardo Mazzucchelli as well. He did well at the World Juniors. He's in the seniors now. He is the top-ranked lifter in Italy on GL points. And I think that 800, I think, was from Italian nationals. And again, I think that looked fairly comfortable. So I think he's got a little more as well. And then we get into a really tight pack with the two Canadians, Manders and Jansen. They're both on 791, and Yanis Buciu on 790. And we've not even mentioned last year's bronze medalist yet, Asenon Enaoru, the big deadlifter from Hungary. He's nominated in 8th place, which with the total that got him a bronze medal last year. So, with time marches on, these totals are going up. What's good enough for a podium last year is not getting you anywhere this year. But he's brewing a big deadlift, isn't he? So how do you think this is going to go, Rory?
Look, if I was going to pick a single lifter to win, I'm going to say I am backing Delaney, but I wouldn't be super confident about that. Like if he goes into this and he doesn't have a good performance, he is at risk of losing that. Yeah. So one thing that really does help backing him is that he makes a lot of attempts. So out of all of the meets that we have on record, he's gone 7 for 9 once, which is at Worlds last year. He's gone 8 for 9 a couple of times, and he makes a lot of 9 for 9 days. And so that's really valuable. And then in Sheffield just a few months ago, I think he hit PRs on every lift and a PR total. So like that's indicating that he's going in a good direction. And from what I've seen of his training footage, like he's putting together a really big bench press at least, and he's been hiding a lot of his other training. So it's hard to know exactly what he's at on those other lifts. So if I was backing one man, I'd be backing Delaney. However, Durans doesn't have to travel anywhere near as far. He put up a phenomenal total at the British Open. It felt like he was hovering sort of just under 800 for a long, long time. And then when he finally put it together, it's really clicked. So I think that the 820.5 that he put together was at a 20.5 kilo PR after only like from what was already a PR total like 4 months earlier or something like that. So I definitely wouldn't be looking past him. So with the Italian lifter, one thing that I will say is that he's got a big deadlift. He's got a big total. Like he is a strong lifter. He misses his third deadlift basically all the time, right? So if we're talking about the World Championships where you get 9 opportunities to score, and in particular, the last deadlift is your tactical choice, right? Like that's where you get to say, hey, what position do I want to come? What weight do I need to put on the bar to do that? And can I execute on that or not? I can't back him if he misses that third deadlift way more than he gets it. Right? That's very hard to back up. And so if I'm picking somebody to come in third, I'm actually going to pick someone more like Nick Manders. Now, Nick also misses lifts fairly often, but he also deadlifts 40 kilos more than the rest of these men. And he had that great line from the podcast, was it last week or the week before, where he said, I don't need a tactical advantage. I deadlift 800 pounds. Now, I would argue that an 800-pound deadlift is a tactical advantage, but being the strongest person there is a really good advantage to have. And so having the biggest deadlift means that he gets to sit and watch what everybody else does, decide what place he wants to come, and write that number down and hand it into the desk. And that is very hard to look past. So I'm actually picking Nick Manders to come in third place.
Good question for you. Do we have, and you're right, he deadlifted just under 800 pounds to do the exact same thing at Canadian Nationals despite missing in bench, missing in squat. He just erased everything with that big deadlift. It's the big eraser when you have an 800-pound deadlift in the 83s. But we have 2 people in the 83s capable of deadlifting 800 pounds. Quick question. How many people are going to deadlift 800 pounds on that day? Rory, you go first.
1. Enahoro has an enormous deadlift, and it's incredibly unreliable. He when it comes together, he can pick anything up off the floor. It just doesn't seem to come together when he needs it as very often, right? So like we saw the big miss at Worlds last year, which was possibly the best deadlift that I've ever seen in person, even though he didn't get it. But like he also did he go 1 for 3 on deadlifts at another meet late last year? And actually, I think he hit a lighter weight that day as well. So does Anna have an enormous deadlift? Yes. Has his squat and his bench improved a lot since last year? Yes. I think he's put about 7 kilos on each of them. And so like that's going to bolster his total a lot as well. And so that may mean that he doesn't have to deadlift something, completely out of this world to get into a position that he's satisfied with. But his deadlift is just not reliable.
Eric, sorry.
Sorry, Dries. When I get Matt, 2 people or 1 person deadlifting 800 pounds.
I'll go ahead on a limb and say 2, just to be the contrarian.
Okay, go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Eric, what do you think? Is Enna going to pull 800 pounds?
I think because Enna is gonna so he's nominated relatively low on the list.
Yeah.
But so you'd think, he's gonna pull to see if he can move up the rankings. I think Enna's gonna pull for something huge. Like he's going to try to jump multiple spots. He's going to try to pull for gold. Maybe if that's completely out of reach, he'll try to pull for podium. And I think there's a strong possibility that will force him to pull something that is out of even this ridiculous deadlift's reach. And I think there's going to be 1. I think Nick will probably be pulling because he's in that kind of top 5 placing. For something that would move him up a spot and potentially get him on the podium. I also know the Canadian coaches, and this is Nick going to Worlds. It's his first time at Worlds, and Nick's also a pretty do what I want kind of person. So it'll be interesting to see what does that relationship look like when he's actually representing his country at Worlds. Does he rein that in a little bit, act as a team player? If so, he might have to pull over 800 to move into the podium spot and get more points for Team Canada. I think he can. And I think Enaharo will overreach trying to go from 7th to 1st or something like that. And I want to just kind of talk about that. Is it cool if I now go into my picks? I don't want to cut anybody else off on that. Okay. This class is insane. So it looks like there's basically 2 battles going, right? We've got Jurins and Delaney. If you look at the nominations, only a 15 kilo spread between them. It's actually a lot closer than that. It was well explained why, and I'll get into it as well. But then the next battle extends from 3rd to 8th. There's a 15 kilo spread on the nominations between Jurins and Delaney. You know where there's also a 15 kilo spread is basically everybody else in the top 10. So I'm exaggerating slightly, but it goes from 800. The next when you get around to 780, 785, we're looking at Enna nominated at 780. So it is a massively tight battle in the top 10. And I think there's a lot of room for movement there, depending upon what's going on. Some interesting things to note. Delaney totaled 835, going pretty much all out and maybe just pulling 2.5 more than he could have, at Sheffield. So he has a really good day, improves a little. I think we could expect to see something similar, maybe as much as 840. Jurins went 9 for 9 when he totaled 820.5 and had some left in the tank. So they are closer than they appear. That is really interesting. Consistency, Rory, you brought this up, speaking about Eduardo from Italy and the fact that he sometimes misses his 3rd deadlift. He did actually go 9 for 9 to total 800 at nationals in Italy. So it's interesting to think that 800 total, when you see a 9 for 9 performance, it could either mean they've got a little left or they had a really, really great day, picked it, and that's about their top end. So it's interesting to see what could happen there. And then also, you mentioned I don't need, tactical advantage. I pull 800 pounds, Nick Manders, and how, a big deadlift erases all past mistakes. Well, it didn't at nationals. He actually placed 2nd. So it erased enough mistakes.
He won. He won.
He won
on body weight.
I thought Nick Manders did not win on body weight at nationals.
You know what
Do
it
I have
is?
that backwards?
If you know what it is at juniors, he tried the same thing and missed. I think that's what you remember. Same podcast.
I have him in second at nationals.
Yeah,
Nick
I thought he
Manders.
was
What's that,
second at
sorry?
Yeah.
nationals.
Yeah, I have Nick
No, Nick-
Manders as second.
Nick won Canadian Nats. It must be a mistake then, because he's the Canadian national champ. Adam lost on body weight in his silver
Okay.
at Canadian Nats. Yeah. So is it listed somewhere otherwise?
Yeah, it's listed on Open IPF. That's how the results came in, but I can see it's wrong. The body weight is Nick
Yeah.
Manders is lighter.
Nick won.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
But
So
to your point though, you do make a point though. He did the same thing at juniors, missed. It's not clear as day he loads up wins every time, right? So you do make a good point.
yeah, and the only real point I was going to get to is that they're nominated on the same total, and that's legit. Like they battled at nationals, and it was body weight that decided it. So yeah, Nick Manders has the advantage in that he is going to probably pull after everybody, maybe not Enaharo, depending on what, but he's going to be either the last or the second to last deadlift, and that is what it is. So there is a tactical advantage there, but it is very, very tight. I think there is a case to be made for Jurens coming out on top. I personally think that it'll still be Delaney, and I just love Delaney. He's a great guy. Shout out Team 3DMJ because I have a bias. My brother Alberto Nunez does his nutrition, so I can't go with my dissenting opinion, but I do think that it is a very I would completely understand if anybody picked Jurens, because the conditions in which these two totals were put up means that they're actually quite similar. You know, you could find another 10 kilos for Jurens without really stretching the imagination at all if you looked at the RPEs on his thirds. So yeah, my picks are going to be Delaney and then Jurens, and then it's tough after that. I think Nick Manders will probably pull to get himself on the podium. And then it is anybody's guess for 4th through 8th, to be honest.
Keep in mind, fellas, when I asked you guys if how many people pull 800 pounds, last Worlds, 800 pounds was the second attempt. So even if Enaharo missed his third, he might pull 800.
That's true.
One more question before we do the 93. So I'm also interested, yes or no, 841, the world record 83 kilo total by Russell or he no less, does that fall at this Worlds? And the only way that's going to happen is if Jurens pushes Delaney or vice versa, and they have to tip over that. Obviously, you're only going to load as much as you need. So having said that, Matt, does that world record total fall?
Yes. It does. And I'm gonna be the contrarian to Eric. I'm gonna go with Jurens. His total at the championships was comfortable. He was, those were low RPEs. He had a lot left in the tank. I don't expect his bench to move much. He's got a 177.5 bench. If he could even match that, maybe squeak out 2.5. But I suspect that he's going to get more out of that squat, more out of the deadlift. This is going to come down to body weight. It's going to come down to lot number and which gentleman is going to be able to pull last. And so, it is tight. I love Delaney. Absolutely love Jurens. Both of these guys, salt of the earth, fantastic people. Would not want to bet against either one of them, but I'm going to go with Jurens to pull it out. I think he's got more left in the tank. And for third place, mentioning Eduardo from Italy, he's got the quickest turnaround out of anybody. That total that he just did at Italian Nationals was on March 31st. So, can he reproduce that effort? I suspect not, just because it's a quick turnaround. I agree with the other panelists who've said that Manders is probably going to position himself to be on the podium in bronze. And the only thing that I can say of Enaharo is if it comes down to pulling for the win versus pulling for third, and pulling for third is a really high probability deadlift, then that's what I would do personally. Just because, throwing this Hail Mary and going for all of the marbles on such a low probability deadlift like last year. I mean, it was really close, don't get me wrong, but I think that's why we haven't seen him be able to reproduce anywhere close to that, is all the stars aligned for that perfect atmosphere and that perfect scenario, where nobody, quote unquote, saw him coming. Well, people see him coming now. And so people know who this guy is. And so I think if given the opportunity, he should try to go for a podium spot versus, going for everything and then winding up in 5th or 6th or what have you. So, but I think Manders will probably come 3rd just because his deadlifts are a little bit more consistent.
Just before we move on, Ryan, I just want to say, Nick Manders, I've put your total right on Open IPF. You're showing as the champion now.
There it is. There's the benefits of having an Open IPF staff right here fixed up real quick. Nice. We achieved something already on this podcast. Nick listening, oh shit, I didn't even notice. Well, that's nice. He obviously didn't notice anyways. All right, moving along to the 93s and the battle of the 93s. Look, it looks like every single flipping year the 93s are stacked, and it's going to be a battle. It's always the class you never want to miss. Surprise, surprise, Jonathan Kaiko finds himself in another tough one. Jonathan Kaiko returns fresh off of his sensational performance at Sheffield. Common adversary, Gavin Aiden. Jonathan wins again, but this time, Gavin, whom in South Africa didn't have the day he wanted, Gavin putting up an 880. Kaiko putting up an 884, but Gustav Hedlund, also former rival, comes in with an 880, only 4 kilos separating those 3 gentlemen in the top 3. But Emil Krastev just 2.5 kilos behind Gavin Aiden and Gustav. Emil Krastev injured when he was at Sheffield, but if you're paying attention to his Instagram and the videos he's posting, he's not injured anymore. Right back into form, expecting probably a PR performance. What does that mean? That means Emil is a serious threat to take the title. Believe me. He took a silver medal at last Worlds and is right in the pickings for a possible gold medal finish. Gavin Aiden, though, has been long chasing that 3rd squat, long chasing that world record. Got it briefly at Sheffield, only to have it heartbreakingly overturned. If Gavin Aiden gets that world record squat, that might be all she wrote to tip the fortunes in his favor. We also have Sasha from Germany, who is a phenomenal deadlifter, held the deadlift world record, returns. Christian from Great Britain, whom is the British champion, get this, at 74, 83, and 93, 3 different weight classes. He's won British titles. He'll be here. Amar Kanan from Algeria returns from Sheffield as well. He could be within shot of the squat world record. He also missed it at Sheffield. This is a stacked 93 kilo class. For the 93s, we have Rory and Eric. Rory, talk to me. What do you think about these 93s?
If this is the class that I'm struggling the most to pick what I think the podium is going to happen on the podium, right? There's like 6.5 kilos between the 1st nomination and the 4th nomination. And then even between sort of 5th, 6th, and 7th, there is basically nothing, right? Like this is tight. So I'll just throw a few random thoughts out there and I'm going to move sort of generally from 8th up to 1st through the nominations. So Amar, former squat world record holder, I think he's going to trade shots with Gavin for the squat world record, but he's just too far behind on total to be a real threat for the overall, I think. So I think a good day for him is probably take a shot at and ideally get the squat world record and definitely walk away with a squat medal. I think that's likely to be a goal there. Christian is nominated at 850. I cannot find record of him ever totaling more than 842.5. I think he's nominated with the sum of his best lifts, which didn't happen on the same day. So that may be a little bit deceptive, but unlike some of the gentlemen from North America, he also doesn't have to travel very far comparatively, and that may also be a bit of an advantage there. It looks like his performance at the British Open in March, where he totaled 830, was fairly comfortable as far as I can tell. And so he may have a little bit left there. So Sasha is nominated at 850 as well, but his best total is actually higher than that. His best total is actually 863. However, that was September 2021. And so typically with the nominations, you're supposed to use a total from the last 12 months. And so we see some of these gentlemen pushing that a little bit in like to make their total look better on the nominations. And we see some of the gentlemen sort of like just picking their most recent total or whatever. And so it does pay attention to these things a little bit. Sasha does have an absolute weapon of a deadlift, but he also only went 1 for 3 on deadlifts in the last meet. So it's actually a little bit like I mentioned with Anna in the previous class, and that like if he can pull it together, then that may help him move from 6th, 5th, 4th onto the podium. If he can't pull it together, that may mean that he's sort of relegated to not even being in podium contention by the end of the deadlifts. He also misses a lot of attempts. Of his last three lift meets, he's gone 7 for 9 once and 6 for 9 twice. And a meet like this, where we have this number of men, some of whom are very consistent, it's probably not good enough to go 8 for 9. It's probably not good enough to go 6 for 9. 8 for 9 is pretty good. But if you're not making at least some of your thirds in a meet like this, I don't know what to tell you, but it's probably not good news. All right, so getting up to Emil, 877.5, second in the world last year. However, he then immediately afterwards bombed at Euros on squat depth. I have been paying quite close attention to his bench in training because I think that he does not hit bench depth. And so I think if there is going to be a spanner in the works for Emil, that spanner is going to be bench depth calls. And we've seen a few competitions now at a high level, and what we have unfortunately seen is not super consistent enforcement of this rule. And so what we saw at Sheffield seemed to be a lot more, we'll call it like a more liberal interpretation of the bench depth rules versus some of the classes that we saw at Bench Worlds were much stricter. And so what passed for Emil at Sheffield, if I'm comparing to some of the things that failed at Bench Worlds, and I think he's higher. So we don't know what that's going to be like on the day for him. However, it may mean that instead of having his massive 230 plus bench on the day, he ends up with only hitting his opener or having to, retake his opener or something like that. And that'll be a real problem for him. Like you said, though, he's no longer injured, and that's nice as well. So getting right into the top end, obviously Jonathan Kaiko, 8 for 9 or 9 for 9 every meet on record, right? This is phenomenal, incredibly consistent. He's totaled basically between 870 and 885. He did have 892, I think.
Yes.
892 a couple of years ago. But he's basically every meet goes somewhere between 875 and 888. And so I think it's a reasonably good bet that we're going to see something sort of close to that range again. So the real question here is whether Gustav Hedlund and Gavin Aiden are coming in at around 880 like they have, or if they're coming in at over 890. And I know that Gavin, at least, is going to put on whatever he needs to try and finish as high as he can, right? Like he will, as he puts it, burn his ships and go out on his shield and all of those things. He's going to be shooting for 900.
Yes, he will.
The question there is whether he gets his squats or not, because we watch his squats and from some angles they look high, and he gets reds and I'm like, unfortunate, but from this angle that did look high. And then you watch them from another angle and they look deep, and that's a really unfortunate position to be in because it means he can't just squat to depth. He needs to squat convincingly to depth. And those are quite different squats. And that may mean the difference between him squatting 325 or 330 and him squatting 340 plus. And that might be the difference between him coming in at 880 and coming third. Ridiculous to say he could total 880 and come in third. It could make the difference between him coming in third and him coming in at 895 or something like that and coming first. Now, I haven't seen Gustav's meet from recently. I think it was that Swedish Nationals in March?
Yeah. Yes.
But 880 is phenomenal, and having the Swedish coaching team in your corner is a definite advantage as well. They are absolute professionals. So putting all of that together, what I'm actually saying is I'm saying Gustav Hedlund for first.
Ooh.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Hot take.
You and Tony Cliff. Tony Cliff picked him as well.
That's right.
Really?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm saying Gustav Hedlund because he has the shortest travel distance. He has a fresh, good total. He has the Swedish coaching team, who I think are phenomenal at what they do. He just needs to perform on the day, which, to be fair, he doesn't always. Second place, Jonathan Kaiko. Third place, unfortunately, I think Gavin is going to get pinged on the squat depth thing again. I really want to see him squat 340 or 345. I think he's going to do it and then get reds, or he's going to get like one red and get it overturned by the jury again. And that's going to be absolutely heartbreaking. But if I had to call the sequence of events, that's what I would suggest is going to happen. And unfortunately, I'm going to have Emil off the podium.
You know what? I say hot take. Gustav winning isn't a crazy, like obviously not a crazy. He's 4 kilos behind number 1 nomination. Like Gustav almost won the worlds. He had the world championship in 2021, past his knees with the final deadlift. Phenomenal lifter, and he's won junior worlds before. Eric, what are you thinking here?
Well, first I want to say that everyone should couch their opinions of my picks pretty strongly, because I'm going to give you 2 examples of scouting. Okay. One example of scouting is Matt Gary 14 hours ago asking Gustav Hedlund what the velocity on his deadlift was on his Instagram, because he saw that he pulled with an LPT, which for those who don't know, linear position transducer, averages bar velocity. And he's actually, just like the meme of him calculating what is this guy's deadlift top end right now, 14 days out from Malta. My scouting is I went back and looked at the side chest pictures I took with Emil Krastev, and I thought, man, dude, your man looks jacked. He's got me on most of these poses, so he's probably pretty strong. And I will say this, so that's semi joking, but Emil is looking really, 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 really good. Rory makes a solid point on the inconsistency of the bench depth calls currently. I think we're probably going to see a statement at IPF Worlds of this is the way it should be. And I don't know what that's going to be, but it's going to be a decisive decision by the judges in terms of precedent, if you will. And I know that my good friend Kedrick Kwan has been working with Emil leading up into this, and he is coming off injury. They're doing a lot of things, and I think Emil is going to be at his best. And here's my prediction, if his bench is the weapon that it can be, depending upon how the judging goes, I think he's going to win. If he is not able to get the benches he needs, I think he's probably going to be looking at second or third. My official pick, though, because since we don't know about the bench, is going to be Mr. Consistency, Jonathan Keiko. I think he's always close enough to be able to do what he needs to do. He's not necessarily going to be pulling last, of course, but I think he's going to be in a position to where he can put together a 9-for-9 total that is going to require perfection from everyone else. And the people who are able to threaten him, none of them can consistently put together perfection for various reasons. So Rory mentioned Gustav Hedlund coming off a great meet, but not always crushing it at the highest level in terms of number of attempts made. Does have the Swedish coaching team in his corner, is looking good, very viable and a reasonable pick. I understand why he and Tony Cliff picked that. Like I said, Emil Krastev looking fantastic, but the bench is a big question mark. And then finally, we have a Viking who comes on a ship and throws an axe, and who knows if it's going to hit or not. What kind of hair is he going to have? Is he going to be on a shield or not? Going out, going in? Who knows? He's a big question mark, incredibly strong. Arguably the strongest 93 is Gavin Aiden. And it'll be really interesting to see how on point his execution and his attempt selection are, because I think he has... So there's a lot of question marks, but my official picks, what they are going to be: number 1, Jonathan Keiko. Number 2, Emil Krastev. Number 3, Gustav Hedlund.
Yes or no? And I think I could probably guess. Does Gavin Aiden break the world record squat? Eric?
No.
Matt?
Yes.
Wow, we got split. I love it. I love it.
I want him to, if you're listening,
Sure,
Gavin.
of course.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone loves Gavin. The guy's charismatic, and watching him do his thing in Sheffield was phenomenal. When he broke the world record, even briefly, his celebration, it was nuts in there. Yeah. But wants isn't reality. You gotta pick with your brain. People listening and they're betting big money off these picks you guys are putting down. Thank you. All right. Well, that wraps up the 93s.
Well,
Joe, you want to take the 105s?
1 second.
Oh, sorry.
I haven't made
Go ahead, buddy.
I haven't made my picks yet. I don't know that I have anything else to add to the conversation. I think Rory and Eric really knocked this out of the park in terms of their assessments of each of the lifters, their strengths, their weaknesses, their coaching staffs, etc. but I have a very different looking podium than anybody else here. And so, yeah. So I do think that Gavin is going to squat the world record, and I have Gavin Aiden coming in first. I think Gavin's going to win. He is the strongest powerlifter. He is the strongest man, I should say, in the room. He will be the strongest guy on that day. He has not proven yet that he can be the best powerlifter, to Eric's point, and putting it all together. And I just want to say to Gavin, if you're listening, man, please curb your enthusiasm just slightly on your squat. And instead of swinging for the fences in that 335 plus, which nobody argues that you're capable of doing, just obtain the world record, have that chip advantage. The world record is currently 331. Depending upon what Amar Kanan does, Amar's been battling injury since the Sheffield. He switched to the strength guys. He's had no time off. It's been an 11-week prep running into Worlds, no deload. He should have a rebound performance from Sheffield, but I don't expect Amar to be in the mix. But depending upon lot number and how that shakes out and the Algerian coaching staff and yada, 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 we'll see potentially that world record in play going back and forth, between Gavin and Amar. But I'm picking Gavin to squat it. And I would just say to curb your enthusiasm slightly, and instead of aiming for that humongous squat, just take what you know you are capable of. Bury the third one. 331 and a half, 332, or 333, somewhere in that neighborhood. Be smart. You have to play the game. This is a game. This is a chess match of who can put together the most successful attempts and stacking them. I admire the man's fire. I admire his mentality and all of those things. But he, like we've all said, we think that Gavin has the highest ceiling in terms of talent, in terms of raw strength. Well, now's the time to put it together. So put it together, bring your best package. I'm picking Gavin Aiden. That 340 deadlift that he pulled at Sheffield, he had room in the tank. He had another 7.5, potentially 10 kilos there. If you just hold serve in the bench, none of these gentlemen is going to total 900. I have the winner. You're going to be needing to total between 890 and potentially 898. I don't see anybody hitting 900 quite yet, but I have Gavin Aiden in first. I have Gustav Hedlund in second and Jonathan Keiko in third. I love you, Jonathan. You are the executioner when it comes to making lifts and going 9 for 9. But I'm just shaking it up a little bit, and that's my podium. Gavin 1, Gustav 2, and Keiko 3.
Let me say something. What kind of a monster will we have if we took possibly the strongest 93 Gavin Aiden and we made Matt Gary his game day coach every time out? Oh my goodness, he could be unbeatable. That's the pairing. Gavin, if you're listening, I'm just saying, Playboy, that could be Jordan and the 90s Bulls, whatever. All right. We're ready to move on then. Perfect. Thank you, Matt. Sorry for almost skipping past you. That's well done.
No worries.
Joe, you want to take her?
Yeah, we got the 105s next. We've got Emil Norling of Sweden. He beat Mikey Davis last year, pulled out that massive deadlift, just beating by 2.5. So that's a rematch that I'm excited to see. We've got the Libyan lifter Abdullah Mohammed in second. Now, we've not seen him do anything like 9:15 at an international. That's a big jump from what he did last year. He was fourth last year with 8:85. So that's a decent chunk of improvement there. But Anatoly Novopismeni, he's back. And he was at Ukraine Nationals recently. He put up 940. His squat looked fantastic. He looks in great shape. I think that nomination there, 905, I think that undershoots by quite a long way. I think Anatoly and Emil Norling, I think that's going to be a great rematch. We've also got Mo Suleiman. He finished on the podium last year. He was at Sheffield, didn't necessarily put it together that well at Sheffield. He had about 4 days' notice that he was lifting there, which wasn't ideal. And then Corentin Clement, right behind as well, former junior world champion. Was he junior world champion as well, Ryan?
He won it this year. Yeah. Current world champion. Yeah.
Current world champion. And he's nominated in 6. We've got another Brit, actually, that's going really well, Ben Pape. He's going to be in prime time as well. So, Rory, how do you see this going?
So love Coco, doesn't put it together very often. So like the sum of his best lifts is 912.5. And if he could actually put that together, that would have him right in the mix for the sort of third spot that I think we're going to see a mix up for.
And sorry to interrupt you, Rory, but with the new guidance on the squat, he does tend to be a little bit lent
that
over.
That is a very good point. Yes, sorry. So for the people who missed that, the IPF, I guess, reminded people that you are supposed to be upright at the beginning of the squat. So the so-called French low bar may cause some issues at Worlds this time around. I think this is the first big meet since that guidance was re-released. Thanks, Joe. Yes. So he like I was saying, he doesn't put it together very often. So if he can put it together, he's likely to be in the sort of 910 to 915 range. I don't think he's going to put it together. I think he's going to be way down. Mo, again, love the guy. He would have to have a really good day to be pulling into that 915 range. And so I think the real mix-up is Mikey Davis and this Libyan lifter who I can't find, like Joe was saying, I can't find a record of him doing anything even close to 915. But if that is a real total that he did under good conditions, then he is probably going to have a good fight with Mikey Davis for what I think is going to be third place. And then Anatoly Novoplasmeny and Emil Norling, I think, are going to have a good fight for first and second. The question here is what Anatoly can put together. Because like we have a pretty good idea of where Emil is. His total swings around a little bit and he competes very frequently. But Anatoly has been living in a bunker in a war zone for like 18 months. And last time he competed, did he go 5 for 9? Something like
I think it was
6 for 9.
The Ukrainian nationals isn't on open powerlifting, so that'd be the second last time he competed.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I'm having trouble with the Cyrillic names. I've got the results, but the names are all in Cyrillic, and I'm really struggling. Okay. So if there's anyone out there that can help us with that and can bang those results in, we'll get those results up.
So it's very hard to bet against a good Anatoly. His best total is 937.5. He, I think, 3-time world champion, 2016, 2019, and 2021, European champion, former best overall at IPF Worlds. So if we're making picks, I'm saying Anatoly for first, Emil Norling for second, Mikey Davis for third.
Yeah, and to add, so Anatoly at the Ukrainian Nationals, this is like 4 weeks ago-ish, hit 940 and squatted 365, just so everyone knows. But you're not going to find too much on that. The 365 I shared on King of the List looked legit, depth, the whole nine. Not a lot of video on the other lifts that I found anyways, but if you're wondering. So
that is monstrous. I didn't see that total. That is monstrous.
No. Yeah, it's difficult to find to Joe's point. So it's keep that in there. He's full guns blazing back, and he might even have more. Who knows? He only posted his squat. Did he hold back on the bench and dead because he held back on the day, and that's why he's not showing those videos? And when it comes time, are we talking 950 or was he all out that day? I don't know. Another thing, Emil hurt himself at Sheffield. He had a torn hammy, and literally when we were walking around in the banquet afterwards, he was hobbling. That wasn't that long ago, March 25th. He might be good now. I mean, he's superhuman, but do keep that in mind as well. Sorry, just want to throw that in there. Whoever's next, go ahead.
Sure. Eric, I think, who do you have to this?
Yeah, this is a tough one. There's a lot of unknowns, and there's a lot of clustering around similar numbers, like, and there's some injuries, right? Both Emil Norling and Mo got a little beat up at Sheffield, and it's unclear to me where they're at with that. Obviously, like Rory said, the big question mark is Anatoly. I mean, he's ridiculous when he puts it together. A month ago, there was a video of him squatting like 325 for 7 or some nonsense. Like what? It makes you wonder, how often is he able to train? What is the situation there? And it is, man, I didn't know what Rory was going to say, but I also have Anatoly in first because you want to see it. He's capable of it. And also, like, lifters find a way. I don't want to make it seem like us training in COVID is comparable to being in a literal war zone and like what he's dealing with. But people were starting to adapt to the COVID situation and figuring it out. And we saw all the kinds of cool stuff in garages, trash cans, all that. And people started getting stronger again after they kind of had that initial dip. So I know that the situation has stayed bad for longer. And the intuitive thing is, oh, then it's probably gotten worse for him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he isn't finding a way. And also, most importantly, is Ryan has been dropping hints. Like he's like, I reached out to Anatoly. I tried to get his total. And he said, I'm gonna sit on that. I'm gonna keep it quiet. And you don't keep things quiet unless there's something to keep quiet. You know what I'm saying? So based on purely nothing except Ryan being sneaky, I've also got Anatolian first, even though we don't have great data on that. After that, it's tough. I think Michael Davis is he's due for having a big day and putting things together. So I've got him in second, and then I've got Emil Norling in third. But honestly, these could all be swapped around. It's very tough. And that's mainly because Emil is coming off an injury, and I'm not sure what he can do in time. But those are my three, and I'm not super sold on them. I'm actually thinking I have the least amount of confidence in my picks for the 105s, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I guess there is a lot of intangibles. I also should say real quick, the Canadian Christopher Acosta Tapia, nicknamed Tap, he has only been competing, 18 months, already has the biggest GL points of all time in Canadian history. The guy is a freak athlete. I haven't seen him in real life, but in videos, he looks like he's straight out of a comic book. I'm very interested in seeing what he's going to do because his rate of adaptation and progress has been off the charts. From him just finding a sport, hey, this looks cool, to the greatest power lifter, like GL points wise, Canada's ever had, and we've had some good ones. So on the men's side, anyway. So yeah, let's see what happens with him. I don't know if he's going to break onto the podium or anything like that, but peg him as someone to pay attention to in the future.
I've got
moving into the one. Sorry,
we've missed out Matt again.
I did it again. Damn it.
It's all good. I'll be quick about this. I have a very similar looking podium except for third place. Let's not forget that Mo, as Joe said, was notified of his Sheffield invitation just a few days before, and so had to change his training up a little bit. He went 6 for 9, but he had the opportunity there. At a competition that incentivizes going for world records, that incentivizes pushing hard and so forth. He had an opportunity to beat Emil's total as well as Mikey's total at Sheffield, and chose not to. He chose to put all his chips into the center of the table and, of course, go for that world record deadlift, loaded up 391 on his final attempt and was unsuccessful. Having said that, I've got Anatoly in first. I think he'll break the current squat world record, which is his at 360. I think that squat world record is going down. I think it's in danger. If he just squatted, like you said, Ryan, 365 at that meet, that squat world record is going down. Potentially the bench world record as well. His PB is only a kilo off the bench press world record. I think the deadlift world record is safe, but that total is going to go down. I have Anatoly winning. I have Emil Norling coming in second. As long as he's healthy and that hamstring is fine, his 380 kilo deadlift is a weapon. He pulled 375 at Sheffield, still with a bad hammy, and still was able to do that. And I have Mo coming in third. I think that he is going to push Michael Davis off the podium with that deadlift, and I think he's going to be playing a different game here versus the one that he played at the Sheffield. And I think, having the benefit of being able to pull after Michael Davis and kind of decide where he finishes is going to round out the podium. So I have Anatoly in first, Emil in second, and Mo in third.
Excellent note on Mo's third deadlift at Sheffield, because he went all in and he will not need to do the incentive. It was incentivized to do so due to, breaking records. He doesn't need to do that at Worlds. And if he didn't, where would he be? Yeah. Well said, Matt. Nice. Another take on it. Looking at the 120s, Tony Cliff, the pride of Great Britain, returns at, I believe he said he'll be 39 years old by the time this rolls around, and peaking now, coming in with a 955.5 kilo total. And Great Britain has a nice 1-2 punch. Indy coming in with a 915.5. However, he's got a 385.5 deadlift, and that matches the world record currently held by Bryce Krawczyk of Canada. That deadlift world record is definitely in danger by Indy. Algeria's Mohammed Sahad with the third nomination, 9'10". Nicolas Perrault from France, who's coming out of the juniors. I believe he's not. He's aged out of the juniors now. Coming in as well in the open, Carl Somerseth of Norway and Matthias from Poland. It's going to be a tough last name to pronounce. Grzyskis.
Yeah.
What do you think, Joe? Did I hear anybody want to take a swing at that? Or we just going to leave that one alone? We'll just
Polish
leave that one
hard.
alone. Rounding out that, there is your top 6 of the 120s. I believe most of us are going to be looking at Tony Cliff, but possibly we have some other storylines to speak on. Matt, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that this class, quite frankly, at least in my eyes and for what I've seen and been able to research and what I've gleaned from the data, is pretty straightforward. I don't have a lot. Let's talk about the Algerian first. I haven't been able to really verify much on him in terms of finding his results and or any social media. So quite frankly, I'm a little uncertain with that 9-10 total. And I know that, no disrespect to the Algerian team, but oftentimes they don't have the resources that some of the other countries have. And that includes access to high quality coaching and so forth. So I have Nicholas from France coming in third, actually.
But just to interrupt you, sorry, Matt, he did do 9:20 at Worlds last year.
Oh, okay.
So he has done this. Yeah.
Pardon my faux pas. Yeah. So if Mohammed can build off of that performance, then clearly he's going to push, second ranked Indy Singh there for that second place slot. But I guess I'll go against the grain a little bit. I'm going to pick Nicholas from France to come in third. He's competed as a very light 120. I think his last meet, he weighed 108.1 kilos, but he's got a pretty robust 895 kilo total there. He's well coached. I know that he plays rugby. And so I think that speaks to the reason that potentially his body weight is down. So he should probably be one of the lighter competitors and have body weight advantage. He's got a nice big deadlift at 355 kilos. I think the real story here is the two lifters from Great Britain. I mean, Tony Cliff, a friend, I consider him a friend. I absolutely love Tony, a seasoned veteran, both in equipped and raw. Just rarely misses. I mean, this guy is like, the male version of Celine Crum almost, for Great Britain. I mean, this guy pulls the trigger and is always on target. I suspect that he's going to be securing gold. I don't think that he's going to have quite enough to break Dennis Cornelius's world record total, but I suspect that Tony will go 8 for 9, 9 for 9 like he usually does and wrap up the gold medal. And I think Indy is going to have his sights set on silver and presumably fending off Muhammad, as you said, Joe, for that second place slot. And he's got that deadlift weapon in his back pocket, and I fully anticipate him breaking the world record deadlift. So there's literally, if there's a world record that I'm confident in, that is one that I'm very highly confident in. So I have Tony in first, I have Indy in second, and then I've got Nicholas in third.
Rory, what are your thoughts, kind sir?
I have exactly the same picks as Matt. I thought I was going to be the dissenting one saying Nico for third. And I will admit some bias because we have the same coach, and so I have some good feelings there anyway. But he has never not PR'd his total, so this will be his 17th powerlifting meet. And of course, your first total is always a PR because you don't have a total before that. But he has PR'd his total all 15 times since then. And is that streak going to break at some point? Yes, obviously that streak is going to break at some point. But it's very hard to look at somebody who can perform like that and perform better every single time and go, oh yeah, this person is not good, right? I believe that this is the most consecutive PR totals of any elite athlete in the IPF. So yes, I've also got Nico in third, Indy in second, and Tony Cliff in first.
So Muhammad at last year's World Championships, 920. This is a 25 kilo spread. Muhammad winning last year's World Championships.
That's where I dissent, Ryan.
Okay, I was gonna say this is bold. Yeah. Now look at weird things happen, gentlemen. Eric, jump in here.
Yeah. So I think it's 1 and 2 are reasonably clear, even though it looks like there's only a 5 kilo spread between Indy and Mohammed Sahad, at 9:15.5 and 9:10. But the big difference here between Mohammed Sahad and Indy is that Indy has a massive deadlift, and Mohammed Sahad has a good deadlift, but has literally never completed a third deadlift. If you look at his open powerlifting rankings of the last 8 competitions, he always misses his third, unfortunately. He's pulled 340. That was on a second attempt last time, but he's totaled 920 twice, both at Worlds last year and at African Championships. So I think we can expect him to be good for something actually around or above his nominated total. And I think that's just a bridge too far for Nick. So I think we're going to see it line up exactly as the nominations go. We're going to see Tony Cliff in number 1, because obviously we're going to see Indy using his deadlift and the fact that he knows that it's unlikely that Mohammed Sahad will make his third, just putting what he needs to on there to secure second and, letting everyone else do their best to catch up. But I think Mohammed Sahad is still going to be strong enough to make even a PRing Nick just be unable to touch him, because we're looking at him having to add 25 kilos on his total potentially from the last performance to do so, which would be awesome to see. But I think it's a big ask.
Yeah, the only way I think, and it's possible, is if he actually not totally fills out 120, but to Matt's point, he's a very small 120. If he actually fully committed, comes in like 115, 25 kilos is a big ask, but if you put on like 7.5 kilos of body weight, but I don't know if that's possible. That could be just crazy. Quick question, and Matt brought this up and gave his opinion, but Eric, Rory, before we move on to the 120 pluses, does Dennis Cornelius's world record fall by Tony Cliff? Rory's already, go ahead, you're already telling us.
It's too far away. I believe Tony's performance in March this year was a PR performance for him, and it's still 23 kilograms off the world record. So is it plausible? Sure, it's plausible. Do I think it's likely? Absolutely not.
Yeah, for anyone listening, it's 978.5 is Cornelius's. And Eric, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, he's in a spot. So here's the thing: like, worlds are a unique animal because you do what you need to do to win. But Tony is enough ahead that he could do that and then think about trying to grab this. But I think it's just a bridge too far. So I wish I could dissent. The one thing I will say is that if he's having a fantastic day, he could be in a position to do it without any chance of losing gold. But I still think it's just a little too far.
For sure, the 95% of the world record, though, and solidifying himself going to Sheffield. I think we're all in agreement with that one. All right, let's move on to the 120s, Joe.
120 plus super
120
heavyweights.
pluses.
If anyone is not picking Jesus Olivares for the win here, then I don't know what we're doing. It's strongest powerlifter alive.
So biased. Oh my God.
He was absolutely phenomenal at Sheffield. It just seemed limitless. He was superb. It was such a brilliant thing to witness and to be part of. You can only think he's going to do even more. So I don't think we've got any questions there about Jesus. Second place on nominations, we've got 2 more over 1,000 kilo totals. Tamer Samkaradze from Georgia and Cenk Koçak from Turkey. He put up 1,005.5 Turkish nationals, or a Turkish competition, I think it was, quite recently. And then there's a big chunk back then to the Ukrainian Dmytro Voik and Abdulrahman Musa. So I think it's a 3-horse race this time. So Matt, how do you see this going? Apart from the first place, I think we're all agreed there.
Agreed. I think you attached every possible superlative that we could give to Jesus. I think if in the fantasy league here, in terms of confidence points, he deserves the highest confidence points that we could potentially assign to somebody. So naturally, I have Jesus coming in first. I think that squat world record, which is currently owned by my lifter Ray Williams at 477.5. I think that's in danger. Jesus squatted 470 at Sheffield. And it was a tough third attempt. He kind of misgrooved it a little bit, but then had a smile on his face kind of at the top. But I definitely think, I think he's going to take 2 pragmatic attempts and then line it up and put the world record on the bar for the third. Because, if you're in top form, why shouldn't you? So I fully anticipate that he'll take a shot at Ray's squat world record on the third attempt. And I fully expect him to secure the W. I think the obvious question here is who's coming in second and third. And I really think it's a coin flip, quite frankly. I think with Kent Kosak, I think the issue is that Turkish competition where he hit a PB was on April 5th. So he has got a really quick turnaround. He's got a little bit of an inconsistent deadlift. He pulls more than Timur, but his deadlift is a little bit inconsistent. He doesn't make a lot of thirds. And with that quick turnaround, can we expect him to be able to reproduce that performance? And then, of course, with Timur, and again, this is no disrespect, but just coming from a country that oftentimes, I'm always a little bit cautious with lifters coming from countries that aren't necessarily well represented in terms of having full-fledged teams. That oftentimes means that, again, they don't necessarily have access to the greatest coaches and coaching staffs and so forth. So I always caution that a little bit. So I'll go ahead and put Kent in second, just because he's got that deadlift of 400.5 kilos as a weapon to use, and he'll be able to kind of put on the bar what he needs at the end. And then Timur in third. But honestly, I think that's kind of a coin flip. I think you could make a case for either. But we've got Jesus at first. I'll take Kent in second and Timur in third.
Okay, Rory, how do you see the podium?
I think Matt's been looking at my notes because I'm calling the same things. Like, obviously, Jesus in first. Let's not talk about that. But Timur and Cenk have in very similar positions, right? Their totals are very close to one another. They have similar sorts of flaws, right? Like they both miss a lot of attempts. And so what I actually think that the battle between those two is going to come down to is which one of them puts together more attempts on the day. Whichever one of those two makes the most attempts, if one of them can go 7 or 8 for 9, which I think would be unusual for either of them, that person is likely to come second. Like Matt was alluding to, there's I want to say kind of like a pedigree associated with countries that send big teams regularly to international meets, and that their coaches get a lot of experience on the world stage. And when that happens, they learn what works and what doesn't work. And unfortunately, neither Georgia nor Turkey does that very often. And so that may play into this, and that neither of them may not have the best meet day coaches. They possibly have less experienced coaches than some of the other athletes. But they're also 45 kilos ahead of the people nominated fourth and beyond. So, and just being the strongest person, or, in this case, the second and third strongest people is a massive advantage. So yeah, I've got Cenk in second, Timur in third. And if anyone doesn't have Jesus in first, just call me. I want to talk about it.
What about you, Eric? You got any hot takes on this one?
I just have a slightly different take on the second and third. I think that the big question here is, it's Jesus first, the squat world record, and then a battle for the podium, which I think is kind of interesting. My pick is that Jesus will go for the squat world record, but depending upon calls, I don't know if he's going to get it. I want him to get it. I think that would be kind of cool to see, because I honestly thought that was untouchable for longer than it has been when Ray set that record. So that'll be I'm excited to watch that. As far as second and third, I think there's a couple of things to note which were brought up. One is that Cenk did just compete in April, right? And Timur, the last competition I saw registered, and it may have been after this, was Europeans in November. So, and he did pretty well. He only missed one lift, but he didn't take his third squat and went 10-11, which I think is what he's nominated for. But he's also 21, so he's younger. And so I've got Timur in second. I think we're probably going to see an advancement on that total, and not taking your third and then only missing one lift and just having it be your third deadlift, to me says maybe this is a cautious, conservative, make attempt kind of approach. I don't want to burn myself out. I'm not going to take that third squat. I'm a super, and and then only missing your third deadlift, that happens, moving for position or whatever it looked like at Europeans. I wasn't there, but so yeah, it's an interesting thing. So I personally just have those two, second and third, flipped from the other two gentlemen, but that's an understandable kind of tough call. So
Okay.
Well, that wraps up the classes. I got a quick question. I didn't prep anybody for this, so this is almost unfair, but I'm gonna throw this out there. Who do you guys think wins for nations and best lifter? Who wants to go first? I know you guys didn't crunch any numbers, so that's the thing. Is it too hard to do to calculate best lifter if you haven't crunched the numbers? If it's just a knee jerk, or do you have someone that just jumps out? You're like, you know what? I'm pretty certain. Go ahead,
I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and take a stab at this first. I mean, I think for team gold, it's going to be USA. I think because they've got the potential to, win at 59, 66, 74, 83, 93. I think the only, we don't have a 120. Certainly Jesus is going to win at 120 plus. So I would be absolutely flabbergasted and shocked if USA doesn't come home with team gold. In terms of best lifter, I'll just throw it out there and say Anatoly. I think he's going to put the world on notice. I think he's going to put together a total. I think, and I'm cheering for the guy for all the reasons that have been mentioned. Hopefully this guy can come out of the bunker and knock this thing out of the park.
What do you think, Eric?
I actually had the same thoughts kind of off the top of my head. There is a shot that Jesus is able to do it as well, but I think I think it will probably be Anatoly. And I have not ran the points on national teams, but obviously I think gold is the States. But after that, I'm not sure.
Rory, it's almost unfair because I know nobody's prepped for this and writing the numbers with the calculator. While I'm talking, if someone wants to pull up the good lift points calculator to throw in the totals they think between Anatoly and Jesus, just to make sure. But Rory, what do you think?
Yeah, I've got Team USA for gold overall in the men's team. The only other thing that I want to throw in for the best lifter is that one of the best good lift points performances from the men ever is Russell Orhe with his 843 at 82.5. So when we said earlier that the 83 kilo world record was under threat, if we're agreeing that that's possible, then whichever man ends up winning that class has a good chance of also being one of the top handful of lifters on good lift points. Like if they come in at 843 and a half, 845, something like that, weighing around 83, that's giving them around 117 good lift points. And like, that's a scary good lift point total, right? Like that's a big number.
Sounds like we can expect Jesus, Anatoly, and the 83 winner to be our top three best lifters on the men's side.
That would be a good handful of men to be backing, yeah.
Agreed.
Interesting. Joe, you got any comments or do you think we could wrap her up? What do you think?
No, I think I'm with Matt actually. I think we'd all like to see Anatoly take the best lifter award. If he's on form, I think he can do it. I don't think Taylor Atwood's going to put in the performance of his life, although he's the top ranked lifter. So yeah, I'd like to see Anatoly take it. For team points, no one's got the consistency at the top of the table like USA. Like you say, I can't even call who's going to come second because there isn't that consistent presence at the top of the field for any of the country. It's a real mix. So yeah, I don't know how that's going to go. It's going to be exciting finding out though, right?
We shall see. Upsets do happen, that's for sure. Look at last year at South Africa. Sometimes a couple upsets in a couple weight classes swings everything, and it's sports. We've seen it all. All right, that wraps up the men's preview show. Please do subscribe, give us high ratings, and tag us in the comments if you guys want to debate in the stories regarding our picks. We're always down to squabble it out and get some good old-fashioned sports debates. And make sure you listen to the women's preview show with the same hosts. Until next time, 6-pack Lapadat, 6 up, and we are out.